I've seen horrible things and things like that, and they're trying to express it the best way they can.
There are a number of ways that that kind of stuff has been captured. There are a large number of books where people have done that, even like at the local level. I can think of locally, there's groups in Kirkwood, Webster Groves, I think also, they've done those kind of community histories, and they've seen that happening over the last couple decades where they're kind of losing that generation. So they've done those kind of oral history type interviews. Many collections, just like ours at MHS and Soldiers, we're pretty active with oral histories. So if you came down to Soldiers tomorrow, you could go into the gallery and hear probably 20 to 30 oral histories. They're little snippets where you're going to hear maybe like 3 to 7 minutes on some of these guys. There's probably 5 or 6 World War II ones that we've got in there. But then you want to hear the full thing, or you want to read the whole transcript. There's 2 hours or 3 hours of guys that are opening up a lot, talking about that. So we have done that. That's in the process of all getting available online. But if there's particular people you're interested in or subjects, you can always come and reach out to us, and we can connect you with that. There's a lot of researchers, like a lot of the students are looking for those kind of stories, so we can help connect them through those oral histories. But lots of local historical societies are doing that. There's a brand new book, I'm sure you guys have it here, that just came out. There was a story on CBS Sunday Morning about it on Sunday, and he was just here at the county library doing a book talk. A guy, an author named David Nassau, there's a book called The Wounded Generation, and he's looking at the greatest generation, these veterans from World War II, where he's done a lot of work with oral histories and letters and that kind of stuff to talk about that group that came back, the impacts of war. To your point, that a lot of times they come back and they don't talk about it. It's those invisible wounds that they're dealing with. And this has happened forever with war. You go back to Greek and Roman times, the people were experiencing these same sort of challenges. It happened in our own Civil War and World War I, World War II. It happens today. People who have lived through that, especially combat, and seen the things, experienced the things that they do, it's very traumatic, and it's really hard. And the people that they often feel the most comfortable with are what they call their brothers, right? The people that lived or shared that experience. And so that's where a lot of that happens. And so that's one of the big popularities about veterans groups, where it gives those guys a chance to get together and do that and share those experiences a little bit. Sometimes it happens in real subtle ways. Sometimes it's more formal, that they're writing their own histories or doing oral histories in that. But yeah, there's a lot of publications out there that have captured that. But yeah, you're right. And there's always another successive generation, right? Like we just did a big exhibit and we're curated at Soldiers on the Vietnam War. Those guys are in their 80s and 90s, and that's that generation that we're about to lose all of those folks too. So we recorded a number of oral histories with them to help tell those stories, and not just the men, the women, the nurses that were over there serving and stuff like that. So we've been capturing all of that. Vietnamese citizens who ended up marrying American soldiers and moved back here to St. Louis. We have those oral histories in the collections too. So yeah, there's a lot of that work that's happening, and unfortunately, we keep doing this. We keep thinking war is the answer to solving our problems, and it happens in a cycle. So Chris's book and this idea of exploring the letters, and that really helps us have a better understanding, and perhaps the next generation might learn some other lessons.
We actually learn from them.
Yeah, we can only hope.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What surprised you? What surprised you the most? Because it's very interesting. I read the article in the Post the other day, and I was fascinated by it. But what surprised you the most as a historian looking at what you found?
Well, I think the most interesting thing, or the most surprising thing, I touched on a little bit already, is just how production was already in full swing by the time the war began. You kind of, from popular history, you kind of get this idea, well, Pearl Harbor came out of nowhere, we were totally unprepared, and that's not really the case. There were a lot of people that were anticipating this, and
And a lot of debate about whether we should have been in the war for that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the fact that we were in full swing production actually, and you realize that when you start really getting into it. But then I think the other part of it was just how much the war had a lasting impact on social movements, but also on these individuals' lives. So many of them came back and got back into the workforce, all based on their experiences, what they learned in their military. If they were heavy machinery operators, they came home and they got jobs as heavy machinery operators and things like that. It totally changed the trajectory of these guys' lives in so many ways. And so it was not just that singular experience. It was something that affected their whole lives.
Anybody else? I don't see any online.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Michael, so much. And we have Christopher's book for sale if you are interested, up in front. And if you want to hang out and sign a couple.
There's even Sharpies here.
Oh, yeah.
I brought my own.
Oh, nice. You're a real pro.
All right.
Mike, is that Rocky's Sickland diary online?